Hey, my dudes, what's going on? It's Rabbit of ScrubLeet Academy. So I did a video a while back about the Horizon Walker tree and what my thoughts were on it. Whiny and I both participated in that video there. And I kind of did a follow-up a little while ago there. I never actually uploaded it. It was probably late then. I think it was last Saturday I even started recording for it. But I ended up doing a video there, just gathering my thoughts on that. Second take, so to speak. And I figured, why not? I'll throw it up there anyway. It's one of those things that's kind of interesting to me just because it sort of showcases where Ditto is going and what's going on with Ditto these days and how people are receiving things, how people are dealing with the new content that's coming out. So, I figured I would throw that up there just for your take there. You guys enjoy that, hopefully. It is a very raw, reactive type of video. I didn't script anything. I'm not even scripting this part, to be fair. You can see I'm still playing as I go through. Hopefully we don't die to that Lich Lord crown, but I think we're good. But, generally speaking, yeah, that's just my take on it. It's a really interesting, potential tree, but not a very good tree in and of itself, in my opinion. No spoilers taken here. We'll see exactly why in a moment here. But this tells me something about where Ditto is going for the future, and that's the thing that I think is really kind of getting to me. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you find something interesting in it. I hope you have some opinions too, because this video kind of goes into some of the commentary as well that other players have had with this tree and how they feel about it. And I think that's kind of important, and it's disappointing that that kind of rhetoric isn't being listened to. Because honestly, it could have been really, really good. But we'll go into that. I hope you guys enjoy. Hope you have a great time here. And I hope you always have a great time. Great day every time. Anyway, we'll send you over to Past Rabbit to try to go over some of this tree. Maybe he'll have some wistful insight. Howdy-o, what do you know? This is Rabbit of ScrubLeet Academy. What do you know? We are back doing some more Ditto stuff. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? But we're not going to be in Ditto today. Today we're going to actually go over Update 50's second preview. The first one, Whiny and I kind of tore apart the Horizon Walker tree. And I'm going to check out Update 2 more as an addendum to that video. I already know what I think about it. I already know where my mind is at, so I kind of know this is still off the cuff, but I know what I want to say about it. So really, it's less about that and more about just seeing the commentary that people make on this, because I think going through this forum, people have been pretty respectful about a tree that, to be honest, I do not think is even remotely good. It's not remotely good, but I'm going to try to be as respectful as the people who are on here, because honestly, you know, I can't fall shy of that. I can't live that down if I decide to be the douche and they are all just, you know, awesome and being decent, respectful to the developers. So I'm going to go over it bit by bit here really quickly, just the blue notes, just the quick stuff, and try to go over what I remember of the changes, because to be fair, I don't remember much of what the original tree had compared to this. But I sort of know where I want to go with this and what I want to say. And then we'll go over some of the comments and see what other people have said and what they've kind of gravitated towards in these changes in this tree. So, first things first, I want to talk about these cores. And that's where a lot of the vitriol's... Well, actually, no. No. We're going to hold off on that for a moment. That is where a lot of the vitriol is, and we'll get to that one. I think the first thing I want to do, actually, now that I think about it, first thing I want to do is talk about the foci of the tree. And this is where I think the biggest disconnect is. Because actually, having just caught that out of the corner of my eye, I realize this says everything that I hate about Horizon Walker in its current incarnation, and probably how it's going to be live. So, we're going to start right up here. Here's your first look at Horizon Walker, a universal enhancement tree currently for Update 50. It has a couple of additions in D&D at this point. As a variant option in 3.5 and a ranger path in 5e. And it's about the Horizon Walker that traverses planes, hunts extraplanar creatures, and uses a bow to do all that fun stuff. The rugged adventurers prepare for any kind of danger on a number of planes and are attuned enough to planes that they can occasionally manipulate planar alignments to avoid danger. That description as clunky as I was able to give it, that description is what they want. So what are the foci? Single target bow damage. Okay, technically fits the description, I'll take it. Dexterity has nothing to do with it. Avoidance defenses, dodge and incorp. No. No, I would say no. That doesn't have anything to do with it either. Because how are you manipulating planar alignments to avoid danger if you're using stats like dodge and incorporeality? And, well, we eventually figure out displacement. I don't know. Do displacer beasts shift between planes? No, they don't. That's why it's weird for me. The displacement spell makes you appear as though you're a couple of feet away from where you are in some direction. It makes you look like you're somewhere, but you're not where you are. You're actually not where you are. So you look like you're in place A, you are actually in place B, and only a keen mind or a true seeing or something will be able to figure that out, or just being lucky enough that you're flailing about and hitting everything within 2 feet. Like, these avoidance defenses are terrible. Every avoidance defense in this tree is terrible. It does not play to what you would expect. Like, a Shadow Walk is what you would expect of a Horizon Walker. But the problem is Shadow Walking is complete crap in this game. So, that's not something that is going to be included in the tree. The tree is very meta, and you'll figure that out as we go through. It was designed, and that's where my dexterity comment is going to come in, actually. It was designed to fill a niche. It was designed to fill this particular statistical value, or this particular statistical corner of the map. You are supposed to fill the dexterity, dodge, ranger tree, effectively. The incorp, the dodge, all the good stuff. You're supposed to have all of that. And, do they? I think they still have Dimension Door. Yes, they do. They still have Dimension Door. You're supposed to fill all the niche areas that are good in the game right now, not all the ones that are less good, like having the actual teleport spell, which is very iconic to Horizon Walker and is something they don't get. So, they've still got marking. Marking works like Assassin's Trick, but apparently it still has that sort of internal time that it has to take to actually activate. And working like Assassin's Trick, I hate Assassin's Trick. I hate Assassin's Trick because of the way that it interrupts your rotation. It interrupts your playstyle. It makes you so that you cannot do the things you want to do. This one apparently works exactly the same way, where marking a target interrupts your attack sequence. It's very obnoxious, at least the way that it looks. And it's very meta, because basically the way marking is going to work, the way that they want it to work, the way that they intend it to work, is that you're going to get favored enemy bonuses. This is a favored enemy type of tree. Like, you mark a target, it acts as though you've got a favored enemy to that target. But also, marking targets gives you additional bonuses against those favorite enemies. Like, if you have a marked target, and he's also your favorite enemy, you get double bonus against him. It's seemingly really obnoxious. Because it's like, well, aren't we making... Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. Are we not making a non-ranger ranged tree? Is that not the focus? Because the focus should be on the bow combat, right? The single target bow combat. Not on the ranger that it could be, potentially. The ranger that it has to be to fit the meta, because unfortunately, you need a few levels of ranger in order to be able to build a ranger-based tree. And this is a ranger-based tree. So you need that. So that's the real problem. So, first things first. Cores. Very quick. Very quick. We're going to go over all the blue notes. Mark targets, get reduction of fortification. Sure, whatever. Stats. You also gain +3 to max dex bonus wearing light armor. Well, that's increasing your dodge. That's also a thing that ties back to the avoidance defenses. It's kind of something I don't like. I didn't even go over why I don't like dexterity. So I'm gonna mention that very quickly here. The reason I don't like the focus of the tree to be a stat, an attribute, is because it's two-pronged. The first one is universal trees are all becoming a focus of a stat. That's not important. The damage, the type, the way that you do damage should be exemplified in the playstyle, right? Exemplified in the way that you actually engage with the world, not just the particular number you use to do it with, right? So that's my thought on dexterity. Dexterity is the number you engage with the world using. It's not actually the way you engage with the world. So that's the problem. See, here it is. If you wanted to make a Horizon Walker tree, the way that you engage with the world is that you manipulate planar movement. You manipulate planar attunement. You can manipulate alignment, which is something they actually did get into, which I will go into, and I will give them praise for that in a moment. But you manipulate these things. You do not manipulate a number that uses, you do not manipulate a number in order to employ all this stuff. You manipulate these different mechanics, and then you use numbers to help translate them in-game so that you do stuff in-game to enemies. Like, if you every time you hit something, you gain, I don't know, like, the original 5e version was if you hit something, you could teleport 10 feet in a direction. If you manipulate that, that is a way that you interact with the world. But using dexterity or bow strength, that's just a means of attributing that number to doing damage to that thing. It's not actually an identity. That's what I don't like. It's not an identity for the class. It's just a statistical number. It does nothing to tell you what this class is about. And that's important because the flavor actually matters. That's the problem. It actually matters. The dex bonus wearing light armor. That goes into the avoidance defenses. I already described why I don't like that, because it doesn't... First of all, it doesn't fit the theme of the Horizon Walker. There's no planeswalking in dodge. There's no planeswalking in incorporeality. There's no planeswalking in displacement. That's the problem. There's none of that. It's just a stat that's good in the game right now that they want to use for this tree. That's why I don't like it. So, that is basically numbers to me. And numbers are probably the second lowest tier that you can get in terms of making me excited about something. Telling me what this does in a numerical form does not tell me what you are, so it's not interesting. Like, I think that I had somebody reviewing my Epic Destiny revamp patch for the Update 51 stuff that I'm going to go into once they actually release that stuff in a more beta test format than an alpha test one. But in the beta test format, or in the alpha test format rather, they had numbers. The numbers don't do anything, and I said, okay, that's just numbers, whatever, we're moving along. And I think there was a bit of a misconstruing of that, where somebody thinks, okay, there's numbers, he doesn't really care one way or another. No, numbers are low on my priority list in terms of theme. In terms of theme, a number doesn't tell you anything. It has to relate back to what you do. Reduction of fortification does not tell you that much about what this guy does that other people don't. AC reduction does not tell you what this guy does that other people don't, because the marked targets doesn't really fit the theme of it. It implies that you do more damage to this thing because you're tracking it. But how does that translate to its armor or dodge or whatever being weaker? That's the thing. It does not, or at least it hasn't been explored, I'll say. It hasn't been explored, and that's obnoxious to me. You get extra dex bonus wearing light armor. Why? How? When? That seems like a mobility thing for a tree that is largely based on being stationary, on being non-moving. So it doesn't make sense. It breaks its own theme right there. Because later on, you get into a lot of stuff where you have to stand still. Archer's focus is a big deal. 30 seconds of standing still. Why are you mobile? Why are you so mobile that you get extra dodge, extra dexterity, extra movement with your light armor if you don't move? Anyway, marked targets get reduction to saving throws. Fortification penalty increases to -10, but it's already -10 up there, so I'm assuming that they're reducing it further there. That's just a oversight. And AC penalty increases. In addition, you get haste SLA. Once again, super mobile. Why are they super mobile? And yet all of their benefits come from being stationary. I don't know. Dauntless marking, saving throw increase. It's just number increases, let's be real. Just number increase. It's more of the same. So it's not interesting. And it's actually bad. And I will go into that later on when it starts to break. Dimension Door, once per rest, you could cast Dimension Door, activate, costs 0, yada yada. And your marked targets get a reduction in movement speed. That can work, because you could actually hamstring targets because you know where to hit them. And you are a hunter of these extraplanar creatures. So you should be able to figure out their anatomy enough that you can hit them in a spot that's going to slow their movement. I like the second part of that. I like the blue part. I do not like the Dimension Door still, because Dimension Door in Ditto is a runaway mechanic. It is not actually an advancement mechanic. And that's obnoxious, because you are trying to hunt these things, not flee to the entrance of your particular dungeon from them, right? Maybe I'm wrong, but it feels that way. Dimension Door is not, it's a quality of life and a runaway mechanic. Those are the only two uses for it. Horizon. Horizon is basically like Horizon Shot. There's no identity there. They don't have a difference. If they changed the name of Horizon Shot at the Deepwood Stalker Tree, I would still say this doesn't have an identity. So it doesn't matter, because it uses favorite enemies, which are a ranger mechanic. This is a ranger. At this point, we're a ranger. And it got rid of the universal stuff like double shot and range power. It got rid of those. In place of favorite enemy, mark target. Became a ranger tree. Lost its identity again. We'll go right into tier 1s, where they've got some, dodge mechanics, keeps it going. But they've also got Conjure Arrow, which is an archer thing. They're not picking their own identity. There's not their own stuff in here. It's all the stuff from Ranger. There's no differentiation between Horizon Walker and Ranger, other than the banishment mechanics in tier 4, is it? Or tier 5? It is tier 5, yes. With that weird, wonky listen skill for whatever reason. Tier 1 is pretty much negligible. It's just force damage. I hate force damage in this game because there's so much wrong with force damage. First of all, it's really tough for enemies to resist. Second of all, it's really meta because it's powerful. And third of all, why do they use force damage? I don't understand why they would use force damage. What did they learn? What have they done? Tell me what they are and how they came across this force damage to use it. But that was something that Whitey and I covered in that previous video. You can go ahead and watch it if you want. I'll leave the link in the description there. Force damage just doesn't make any sense, just obnoxious. The mechanics of opening shot are apparently also pretty obnoxious, but, or not opening shot, it's, what is it? It's later on in the tree. It's the other opener. We'll get into that. Take the opening. Yes, it's actually in tier 2 here. Because they scale this at 200%, they do force damage per character level, but the creature has to be 100% of their max HP. Apparently there's a bit of a workaround where you've got about a second to actually hit them with this, but this does not conform to party mechanics. It does actually conform to what you'd expect of the tree, but in terms of gameplay, I can't imagine it would be all that fun. It would really, really hurt the party to have your range tune targeting and smashing everything. And I did read a comment later on here, and I don't think we'll get that far down, so I'm going to mention it here. But the comment was about how you should be going ahead of your party in order to trigger these mobs, in order to bring them back, or in order to get the opening shot and stay there and just sort of track and assess the situation. It would be a good option, but guess what you get to do while everyone else is having fun behind you? You get to sit there. You get to sit there and wait to have fun. That's not a good mechanic. That is not a good gameplay or party mechanic. See, if you are a tracker going ahead of the group, you should have speed bonuses. You should not be an immobile, stationary tree that forces you to stand still while enemies are being killed behind you, and then open shot on one dude, and then run forward again to sit and wait at the next enemy so that you can do an opening shot again. That's not fun. How could you imagine that to be fun? How can it possibly be a fun playstyle? That's not good enough. That's not a good enough excuse to try and speak away all of the problems with this take the opening. But that was neither here nor there. It was totally here. It was a bit there, but that was just my ramble on that comment. The take the opening deals force damage, scales with range power. It still doesn't really say all that much. It does kind of fit the theme, to be fair, because it's a hunter, but at the same time, maybe take the opening could apply a stun effect, or a daze if you didn't want to stun. Because you could take the opening to get a huge hit on him. You could get a massive shot right away, and then your party can catch up because he's dazed and he didn't aggro his friends. Like, that's a good idea, isn't it? Something like that, instead of just more force damage and more range power attack bonus and, whatever to this, force damage is applied twice when used against marked targets. It's like, oh yeah, okay, great. So I gotta mark him, take the opening before my party, who's zerging at 150% movement speed minimum, gets there and does everything for me. And then I get to run up to the next group and do the same thing. Can't be fun. But here's where I'm gonna give it praise. I'm gonna give them kudos here because this is a really cool one. Protection from evil and good. If you are walking the plains, you're gonna come across evil plains like what is it? Bator, the Nine Hells, or you're gonna come across good plains like Celestia. You're gonna come across all these different creatures and all these different planes, and you're gonna gravitate towards something of each of them. And you're gonna know something about each of them. You're gonna study it or practice it while you're actually planeswalking. So you get bonuses against evil creatures for the first tier. For the second tier, you get that for good creatures as well. For evil and good, you get both. And then for the third tier, which might cost 2 AP, but that might just be a typo, you're also warded from magical mental control and compulsions from both evil and good. Perfectly in line with what I'd expect. Now, if there was an imagination for all the abilities that fit that theme, I would not hate this tree, I would love it. That one alone is probably my only pleasant thought on this tree. That is the only thing I can praise on this tree. But I'm going to give it props. I'm going to give it... It's got its own space here. It's got its own pedestal. We're just going to set it up there. It's going to be beautiful looking. That's the best ability in the tree, thematically speaking. Numbers are just numbers, but that is thematic. So tier 3 changes here. Hunter's Focus. If Archer's Focus is enabled, remaining stationary for 6 seconds grants you 1d4 plus 4 stacks of Archer's Focus, so 5 to 8 stacks. Triggers once per time you remain stationary. I'm going to say it right now. That is maximally Dirtles. That is incredibly Dirtles. So you basically run forward, sit there for 6 seconds while everyone does fun behind you, and then when they bring the fun forward, you get to do fun one time, and then you get to like step forward 1 step, hide, and wait another 6 seconds to pop up another bunch of Archer's Focus. And then you get to rinse and repeat constantly. There's your fun. There's your fun. Dirtles. Stay stationary for 6 seconds, walk forward, stay stationary, and just hit one target while everyone else around you is throwing potions and nuking groups, or just using strike through in its ridiculous incarnation and burning things down easily with Sword of Shadows. That's what you get to do, is you get to stand there and hit one target and then move forward to dirtles out this weird ability to try and make this wonky thing make sense. No, it's actually kind of worse than... It's worse than the dirtles for, like, when you use many shot or scatter shot, you get displacement for 12 seconds. It's actually worse than that because this is not fun. And it's dirtles, and it's obnoxious, and it forces you to stay still, which, to be fair, you should not be staying still anyway. I mean, I know that people have mentioned that if you've got a tank, you can stand still. Then where's the fun? Because there's no threat. If there's no threat to you because your tank is basically able to just taunt everything and keep them off of you, and you're just standing there all the time and you don't have to engage with mechanics of fights, where is the fun? Like, the whole point to having that little blue circle that spawns on the ground that goes explodey happy in High Reapers, or having boss mechanics where they drop some stuff on the ground and you got to avoid it, or the lava or something like that. The fun thing about that is you are not always out of threat. You are in the area of threat. It is actually damaging to you to stand in fire. Why should we be promoting you to stand still, to sit on your ass and just occasionally go, oh yeah, that guy over there, I'll just shoot him. I'll just stand up here and just go, boo! And then I'm gonna sit back down after I had to move, after I had to creep ahead, basically roll ahead, and then just roll up with the bow again and just shoot once more because you get extra stacks of Archer's Focus. Why is that the playstyle that we are promoting here? That's the biggest question there. It should... I mean, there's a couple of things, and I know that Steel Star's addressed this. And he's mentioned a couple of times that he's not going to address Archer's Focus. The team isn't going to address Archer's Focus. Not just him. It's the whole team isn't going to address Archer's Focus. They've already mentioned this. They've already determined that this is true. But, or at the very least, it's not going to be addressed in Update 50. It's not going to be addressed probably in Update 51. This is a big undertaking, these two updates, so I wouldn't expect it to be addressed yet. But Archer's Focus is a terrible playstyle. It treats parties as though they are one of two things. Either you're going to be standing around and trying to build these stacks on single target damage, so you're good against bosses, but you're not good against much else, or you're going to be running around all the time to get to the fore so that you can open shot and hit something really powerfully while your friends do all the fun behind you, just so that you get a chance to do one thing. Honestly, it's so here and there. It's so here and there. It's like a half mobile tree. In the cores, it's especially mobile. And then here, it's like really stay still focused, right? Really like stationary focused. And it's not good. It's very, 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 very obnoxious. It annoys me to all hell because I was really banking on this to make archery kind of better. And it makes it better numerically while trouncing on the idea of it mechanically and trouncing on the idea of it thematically. Like, that's the problem, and that's what really scares me about Update 51, is that the theme is probably going to be secondary to the stats, to this stuff here, to the single target bow damage. I don't know if you guys could see that. Yeah, there we go. To this stuff right here, single target bow damage and dexterity. That's going to be the focus. No, here's how you open with a focus. You do not open with a focus by saying what stat it's going to use. Here's how you open. We need to be hunting extraplanar enemies with a bow. That's how you open, right there. You start with that, and then you make everything fit that theme. Marked targets do not fit that theme. Marked targets fit the theme of any archer who can track, any archer who can mark. They do not fit the theme of a specifically Horizon Walker bow user hunting extraplanar enemies. That's that's where you start. That's what's annoying me about this tree. It's that it didn't start there. It didn't start there at all. It started from the perspective of an archer in the woods, not from a Horizon Walker in a random plane like, you know, like Bator, the Nine Hells, like one of these weird realms where everything is just topsy-turvy, like all the physics of the world and all the natural components and the environments all get twisted and turned on their heads, and they're all messed up in some way. The Horizon Walker should be able to navigate messed up environments and should have benefits from those environments. Like, why does it not have, like, a frost spell from the Ninth Circle or something like that? I don't know if it's the Ninth Circle that was... I know it was in Dante's. It was the frosty area. But I don't know if Bator, the Nine Hells, was actually the same design. Point being, like, why couldn't they have a frost ability that just, it chills somebody to their bone and it debuffs them with like a crushing despair effect because you're stuck in hell. And maybe not hell literally, but hell of your own mind or your own emotion. It could really do something there. Like, crushing despair in that instance is thematic because it fits the theme of the plane that these guys fought in and came from. And that's the important point. That's what you really want to have. You really want to have focus on that region. You don't want to have focus on, hey, this one does the stat that I like. This one does the attribute to damage that I like. It's like, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter nearly as much as, does this feel like a Horizon Walker or your run-of-the-mill rogue who could pick up a bow and use this tree as long as they have enough favorite enemies to make it broken? Oh, we're only on tier 3s and I wanted to speed through these. Hoo-wee. Alright, okay. We're going to move along. Walker training has +2 to attack and +2 to damage. I think that was originally +1/+1, wasn't it? But it's 1 AP, so it's super broken. Compared to older trees, but they're probably going to get a revamp, and then other trees will have to get a revamp, and it's just going to be this endless circle. I don't know. It's just damage. It's just stats. I'm just going to let that one go. Walker's Guidance. You and target ally get evasion, improved evasion, and +5 to saving throws versus traps for 12 seconds. Evasion and improved evasion. I thought it was originally just evasion. I'm pretty sure that was what it was. I can check my notes, but I'm not going to do it here. I'm pretty sure it was just evasion, and we trounced all over it on a tier 5 because it was silly. That's what I'm feeling right there. And now it's evasion and improved evasion, so you're going to take no damage on a save and half damage on a failed, and extra saving throw damage. It's still going to benefit you, right? It's not going to benefit them. It's still going to just be about you, right? Because say you use that on, well, anybody who isn't a light armor wearer. What is its purpose? +5 saving throws versus traps. You're still taking half damage. If you're a paladin, you're always saving against traps because paladins are super duper ultra mega unbelievably broken. I like using that word there because they are broken and you know it, and I know it, and everybody knows it. They are broken as hell. They are terribly broken. So, they're going to save against traps. If you're using that on a fighter, oh well, he can tank the hit. Barbarian, he can tank the hit. The only one who's going to benefit from something like that is going to be a squishy toon, like maybe a bard or something like that. And even bards have crazy temp HP. Warlocks have crazy temp HP. Alchemists probably have crazy temp HP. I've been running an alchemist on Twitch, and I've been hating every single second of it. It has been the worst experience I've had in Dido. And I'm sure that they get temp HP, because of course they get temp HP. Every ability they've gotten so far has been meta. It's been a terrible experience because it's been boring. And that's what I feel with this tree. And that's why I'm very reticent. I'm very hopeful they fix it. I'm very hopeful that they at least listen to some of the comments we'll get into soon enough. I'm going to make this probably like a 45-minute video. I think that's a good bracket, as if I can get through these tier 4s quickly enough. Because I want to go through a couple of the comments and just do my own responses and so on and so forth. And, you know, comfortable response. I've been very vitriolic right now with these because this tree is the spitting example of what I don't like about Dido. It is the spitting example of where it's going and where it's been going for a while. And it's annoying me. But the comments are much more tame and much more focused, and I want to get into them and see what they say. So we'll just go through these a little quicker. So yeah, it was a tier change. It was a tier 5. So I was pretty sure about that, yeah. I didn't even read that part. But it was a tier 5 because I remembered that one, and that was super obnoxious. Scattershot gives an increased crit threat range and multiplier. They don't seem to realize that that's what's breaking the game. Critical damage, critical range is breaking the game. Why do you keep adding more stuff to it? Stop it. Stop it, stop it, stop it. Make this tree good on its own merit. Do not make it good because it can manipulate critical. Make it good because it can be good. Make it good because it's good. So that's just terrible. I hate Scattershot as a mechanic because it doesn't do anything different. I hate Scattershot with the multiplier even more because it takes the bad thing in the game that's meta broken and applies it. Instead of actually trying to translate something from what a Horizon Walker is, it just says, you get the meta thing of the day. It's terrible. Get rid of it. Here we are, tier 5s. Tier 5s where the most changes have occurred. Feywild Attunement. You have base attack bonus equal to your character level while using longbows and shortbows. That one's just a given. I think that's fair. Rangers get BAB equal 1. Might as well, sure, but that's still pretty rangery anyway. It was really just a location change according to this, so that might have been a thing. I think Feywild Attunement was probably down in tier 4, right? I don't know. It feels like it was there. Oh, no, never mind. It was in tier 5, but it was just bumped back a couple. I don't know why it's there. Like, it doesn't really matter, I guess. It's still tier 5. Banish the Quarry, additional 1d10 force damage for character level. That probably was increased. It feels like it was increased, and the banishment skill against Listen is still there. That's silliness. Why Listen? What does Listen do? How does Listen relate to you? Why is there nothing else in this tree that explains why they use Listen? Why is that not in it? Why is there nothing in this tree that uses that skill until tier 5 when it suddenly becomes a core mechanic and the only way that you can banish extraplanar creatures? Why does this tree annoy me so much? There's so much in it that's not thematic. Like, all right, here's how you could start. Here, all right, we'll take that. Banish the Quarry. We're going to go right back up. Foci of the tree include single target bow damage. First one, perfect, excellent. So that's number 1. That's numero uno right there. Single target. Second tier is not going to be dexterity or avoidance defenses. It's going to be this. It's going to be your Listen skill. Because what do Horizon Walkers do in our makeshift version that I'm making up right now? Well, they could potentially listen to their targets because they cannot trust their eyes. Because what they see in the plains around them is subject to change on a whim, but what they hear is very much clear. So how about the Horizon Walker, if you want to make something unique, because this is not the Horizon Walker in the pen and paper versions, if you want to make something unique, how about the Horizon Walker has learned to blind itself to all visual stimulation, so it has an automatic spot of 0, but gains bonuses to listen, and that listen allows it to determine things. And maybe it gets bonuses when it's blinded, so it can choose to go into a perma-blindness state, but when it's blinded, your screen doesn't go away. It simply has this extraplanar sense where it can tell where things are. So it outlines everything on your screen. It'll become like a black and white screen, but it outlines everything on your screen that's a hostile in red and outlines your allies in green. That can give you a visual stimulation to tell you exactly what the Horizon Walker is, and you feel like you're part of that world. Like, if the Horizon Walker did something like that, where if you start off, first point in Horizon Walker, we're taking away mark the targets forever. Just get rid of it. It's not a mechanic yet. We're going to get rid of that, and we're going to replace it with this. Horizon Blindness. Or Blindness of the Plains. Or we're going to instill in you, like, Planar Extrasensory. That'll be the ability. Planar Extrasensory. And it's going to be, you no longer see your targets. And your screen will permanently be this black and white, this gray sort of element. It's going to look gray, as though you're like a dead character. But all of your enemies are marked with outlines of red. All of your allies are marked with outlines of green. And objects on the ground, or objects you can interact with, or people you can interact with, NPCs, something like that, are going to be outlined in blue. That's going to be your new screen. And it'll be like, you no longer use your eyes to determine what is in front of you. You only use your ears. You only hear the world around you. But you hear it in a way that allows you great bonuses against it. And you get listen. We'll give you 10 listen in this tree right away. You get plus 10 listen right off the bat in this first core. And then, from that point onward, you get bonuses to listen in the cores, and you also get abilities that use listen. Like, if you can hear a target, it's no longer considered incorporeal or concealed to you. That's a perfect mechanic right there and a perfect application of avoidance defenses. That's a perfect application of that in this tree. You don't get them, but nobody else does either. Nobody else can dodge you. Nobody else can be incorporeal around you. Nobody else can be concealed around you because you can hear them. You can hear them more perfectly than you could hear my sultry tones if you've listened this far. This is a perfect application of the listen skill, and it did not require breaking the game in order to do it. It didn't require meta usage. It only requires a bit of a sacrifice in the visual department for a huge benefit in the audio department, correct? That's the perfect way to do it, right? That's how you could do that. Like, it's not difficult to come up with these ideas. That's the problem. It's not actually all that tough. And it's obnoxious to see how little thought is put into stuff like this, where there's no application of listen beforehand, and then suddenly it's a core mechanic at level 12. Over halfway through your heroic career, it's a core mechanic. Whatever. It's banish the quarry, I dismiss it. I dismiss it outright. Misty Step, rush forward, you have 5 reflex saves and 20 stacking incorp. Stacking incorp. Stacking incorp. While stepping. And when you tumble or use Misty Step, you get range power equal to your character level for 12 seconds? What is this durdles? What is this tumble durdles? What is this? Oh, this is gross. This is a terrible. I couldn't use this tree. I couldn't imagine just tumbling and misty stepping in order to get the range power necessary to cover for what they stole from here in order to make this a ranger tree. Oh, wow, this has gotten way saltier than I thought it would be, but that is a big drop in both in terms of flavor and in terms of like playability. That's terrible playability. So you automatically, as you rush forward, you get the 5 reflex saves and the 20 stacking incorp well stepping. Like, if it's well stepping, it's not interesting. Because you're gonna rush forward, right? It's gonna be over real quick. So what's the point? But like, it doesn't have any theme, it doesn't have any flavor, it doesn't have anything to do with the tree. Despite you telling me that it did up here, it actually doesn't have anything to do with what you've identified the Horizon Walker to be, which is, I don't know. I don't know what this class is still. You haven't told me any of that. It's like, it's a class that uses numbers to do things. Well, doesn't Barbarian do that? Yet Barbarian is like this rage ability as well, and Barbarian has also like this ridiculous amount of helpless damage they can inflict upon things, especially if they're half-orc. Like, Barbarians have flavor, right? The Occult Slayer is like this immune to spells, ridiculously over-the-top shaman barbarian slash, you know, cuttery type barbarian. Oh, I'm gonna cut myself. Not quite. But like, it has some flavor to it. The Frenzy Berserker has like temp HP all over the place. So does the Ravager, but the Ravager's more like, I'm going to hurt you. The Ravager wants to actually hurt you, and the flavor text in that tree promotes that type of gameplay. Like, these classes, these trees, and these are old trees, these barbarian trees, they have flavor. They do not lack. This one is lacking. This one is terrible. But we're on to the final change here, because they do have improved Archer's Focus, which is, as in Deepwood, as in Deepwood, as in the tree that actually has identity. They've actually got the same ability, because this tree cannot have its own identity. It's infuriating. It is absolutely infuriating that it cannot have its own identity. It relies entirely on Ranger to have any semblance of identity. This is obnoxious, because I was holding out for this one, and they want you to pay for this one. That's not good enough for me. To force me to pay for something that doesn't even have the identity of Vistani Knife Fighter, for God's sake. It doesn't even have the identity of a guy who holds his knives upside down because he thinks it's cool to jump at enemies and slam down on them. It lacks that much identity. That's annoying to me. We're on a power shot. Okay, we're probably at the 45-minute mark now, aren't we? We're closing in, so I'll try to prune this down so that it stays to a 45-minute by the end of the video, because I want to get some comments in here. I want to make sure that I do that right. But, power shot. Whenever you critically hit an enemy with many shot or scatter shot, it takes force damage per character level that scales with range power. I don't care. It's force damage, but you haven't told me why this class, why this universal tree, likes to do force damage. You haven't told me anything about it. So that's not flavor, it's just numbers, and I don't care. I'm going Ranger. I'm going Deepwood Stalker. Because Deepwood Stalker makes me feel like a Deep Woods Stalker. Right? What does this tree make me feel like? Another Ranger that uses a bow. I use dexterity to damage. You know what I get to do? Here's what I get to do. Go no step miss, battle trance, and just go the rest in Deepwood Stalker, because that's statistics that will help my Deepwood Stalker be fun to play. Like, this tree is not fun, it just helps my Deepwood Stalker be fun. But, like, why is it its own thing? Why do you have 41 points worth, or more than 41 points? You have a bunch, but you have at least 41 points worth of abilities here, and I only want 13 of them ever. I mean, at least they got rid of displacement. No, wait, no they didn't. Never mind. I said that prematurely. They didn't get rid of displacement. They kept it in there. Of course they would keep the dirtles in there. Oh, wow. Okay, that was a interesting tree. It was an interesting tree. And the changes do not feel good. They feel terrible. They really, really do. They actually feel worse than they did before, because they lost the identity. Like, protect from good and evil, or protection from evil and good. That's the only identity this tree has. Everything else, I despise. I despise it. This tree could be effectively garbage right now in its current incarnation. This looks like not even an alpha tree. This looks like somebody didn't have an idea, just wrote down all the stuff that would be good for like a tree they need to sell, and then said, hey, can we fix this up? And somebody else said, no, it's good enough as is. Put it on the conveyor. Send it out to the people. It's good enough. It has no flavor. It has no theme. It has no identity. It's obnoxiously focused on 3 different playstyles that it does not support, while at the same time basically stealing all the stuff that it possibly can from Deepwood Stalker. Let's get into the comments that are much nicer than me, though. So let's see here. Improved marking. Your marked targets get 10%. The AC penalty. Could you add something for those that do not wear armor, say if wearing cloth or no armor, plus 2 AC? I want to take this comment just for the sake of this one kind of tackles something in this tree that doesn't make much sense. Why are these guys a light armor user? What makes you feel like this is a light armor tree? I know that maybe the Deepwood Stalker in or Deepwood Stalker. I'm gonna keep confusing them because they're the same tree. I know that the Horizon Walker tree probably would use light armor as opposed to any other. But you haven't given me a reason for why this tree has theme for a light armor. Like Deepwood Stalker. Oh my god, I did it again. Horizon Walker. Horizon Walker has light armor, but you haven't told me why. They might have a reason for it in the pen and paper version, but they don't have a single reason for it in this version. So how do I know that that's a light armor tree other than that you just told me it uses light armor? Why does it use light armor? What does it use? What is it about light armor that makes it good? Tracking? Well, aren't clothes easier to track in? How does it have so much time to, to hunker down and get some hides together? It's planeswalking. Isn't clothing a little easier to move around in? I don't know. Like, it's one of those things. This one actually does have a bit of merit because why not use clothing or no armor? Like, it's not an insult either. There is no identity. There's nothing to understand about the identity. Because it's like, yeah, there's no reason that they're a light armor dude. You haven't explained that to me. So why can't they do something without armor? Why not? Just why not? So that's the thing there. It's a lack of identity. If the identity doesn't exist, why don't we just have a catch-all for everything that works? Universal tree. Still think there's too much cognitive dissonance in this tree design. Well, another perfect comment right there, actually. Between all the mobility skills, the proc on tumble buff, and being tied to the AF, the Archer's Focus stance, that requires extended, not moving. Hunter's Focus for bonus stacks of AF is a step in the right direction, but they just double down on the dichotomy by requiring 6 seconds of not moving. But it requires you to be still for all the good abilities, but it also requires you to be moving around, so there is no identity there. It lost the identity of mechanics. That's a mechanical identity right there, because there's a difference between a mechanical and a thematic identity. It doesn't have a thematic identity because it doesn't stick to the banishment mechanic. It doesn't stick to the mobility mechanic or the planeswalking mechanic or the teleportation mechanic or even the dexterity mechanic. There's not much about dexterity. Listen is a wisdom-based skill. Like, shouldn't you be using your hide or move silently as your skill to banish things because you would be hiding and catch them by surprise? Or moving silently so they can't detect you? You use the higher of the two of them? Like, it's not even dexterity based. It doesn't even fill the role of that piddly mechanic as a mechanical flavor win. That's the like, oh, every time I think about this tree, there's just more I hate about it. Have Hunter's Focus be a rider on many scatter that grants a few stacks of AF and immediately fills your 3-second stationary timer so you can start building more right away until you move. Great idea right there, because it would play to that dichotomy that was mentioned. The dichotomy of you have to kind of balance between when you stand still and shoot and when you move around and get out of the way of damage, because this seems to be a cowardly tree. It's got a lot of like dodge and displacement and dimension door. It's got a lot of those mechanics, So obviously, you would want to play on that dichotomy if you're going to have that identity, right? You're not going to have somebody just standing still all the time to get the bonuses, right? Or you could have them stand still because you get to put an in-game sacrifice and use use effectively a stick to beat the player over the head with, as opposed to a carrot to entice them to do this very unique playstyle that is being suggested here. On the second comment, now mind you, there is a response here. So here it is. Just to get right out of the gate, we do not have plans to let you stack Archer's Focus while moving. Yep. So that's the response. That's not good enough. It's not good enough because if you have this dichotomy, why are you not thinking about mobility and immobility? Why are you not thinking about both of them working in tandem? It's not about Archer's Focus while moving, but maybe if you stay still, and you stay still for, you stand still, maybe your next shot generates 6 Archer's Focus. And that has an internal cooldown of 12 seconds. Like, why not? Why not? What is actually wrong with that? 6 Archer's Focus is not going to break the game because bows are terrible. And I played with a guy who just did 100k per shot on, well, Fury of the Wild bow damage. But bow damage nonetheless. But you know what? A buddy of mine can do that 100k with every single hit of adrenaline. Every single one. So, it's actually not that big a deal. It's sadly not that big a deal. And that person probably had to build this character over the course of a long period of time to really get those numbers. You could get that with two-handed fighting pretty easily, so it's not going to break the game if you have 6 stacks of Archer's Focus, or 4 stacks, or 1 stack, or 12 stacks. It doesn't matter. Because bows are weak. Bows are really weak. Ranged weapons, in general, are weaker than melee, but bows are significantly weaker. But anyway, it's like, we do not have plans to stack, and that's just the response. It's not really good enough, because, like, then you just basically said, okay, we're not bothering with identity. We don't really care about that, because that is the identity you gave this particular tree. It was both mobile and immobile, and you didn't have a way of meeting the two, of creating this synergistic relationship between the two. If you don't have that, then it's a terrible idea. That's all I'm saying. We understand that the playstyle of standing still isn't everyone's cup of tea. That's fine. You don't have to use Archer's Focus. That's not a good attitude. It really is not. You won't optimize power if you do, but that's the intended trade-off here. No, this right here is not a good attitude to have in regards to the question of standing still is a bad idea in Dito. Melee don't have to stand still at all for any of their stuff. Why do you put this MacGuffin into ranged combat that requires them, if they're using AoE, unlike Strike Through, which gives full damage and effects and mods to everything that's hit, and guarantees hits, they don't have to be in a line, you give them a 20% damage nerf to ranged. That's the first one. That's improved Precise Shot, which is basically the Archer's Focus, the antithetical to Archer's Focus, or the opposite. That's improved, but then when they're single target DPSing, why is it you let fighters and other melees just stand there and hit things, and then they just get to move around afterward and still hit things for the same amount of damage? They have a -4 to hit, which is also unranged. So that's just, we're just going to cut that out. That's common denominator on both. It's not to be considered. Where archers have to stand still for 3 seconds to even start building up to the level of a fighter. It's like, do you want this playstyle to suck? That's the problem. It's not a matter of trade-off, because if it was a matter of trade-off, you wouldn't have cleaves doing extra weapon damage. You would have them doing less weapon damage. You wouldn't have Strike Through doing guaranteed same damage to all mobs. You would have it doing fewer points of damage to additional mobs, right? If that was the actual thing there should be a trade-off for all. Why is it that it feels like some playstyles have a trade-off and other playstyles feel like they're being played by key designers of these trees? I wonder what's the correlation there? That's the thing. No, optimizing power is not the big deal here. It's the playstyle, it's the funness. Funness should come before power, right? You should be having fun in the game before you have power. That's a terrible, terrible attitude to have there. Horizon Walker helps you optimize that faster and move better when you do move. No, it does not. It doesn't optimize that faster because optimizing power is not the only metric in the game. Because optimizing the power of your attacks requires that you have less fun and requires that you're capable of optimizing that power. If somebody's capable of standing around for 6 seconds while everybody else is getting one-shot cleaved by these ridiculous Reapers that you threw into the game, and I will mention I took 7,000 damage off of a Vengeance Reaper. Not a Vengeance Reaper who actually hit me, just somebody who was in the area and hit my tank, insta-killing him as well. How in the world am I going to stand still during that if I want to stay alive? Like, that's the scaling is so silly that this playstyle cannot advance into higher tier content. And your attitude is basically, then you don't have to use it. You don't have to play this tree that we're bringing out. Then why bring it out if it's not valuable, and it's not fun, and it's not optimized for play? Not for power, for play. Like, if I can stand there and throw for 20 minutes and get the optimum power, that's fine. But I didn't have fun, and I'm never playing it again. That's not good. That's bad design. It's a terrible, terrible answer. So I'm just reading this right. Misty Step went from 3 seconds to 12 seconds, but that was the most fun of the first preview. Yeah, and then it also got a significant buff applied on use. That one probably was the most fun, to be fair. It was a monk mechanic, and I trounced it for that, because it's just basically, it's taking mechanics from other classes that it doesn't have an identity for. But I don't deny that Misty Step, being, having played a monk, Misty Step is fun. I don't deny that Misty Step would be fun on this tree. I didn't actually play this tree because after I left that one, I just went back to main server because I was not going to waste my time trying to figure out this tree from start to finish. That's why I'm back here figuring out the tree from start to finish. But, I like a little punishment, I guess. So it did, and also got a significant buff applied on use. To be fair, it probably needed that increase in cooldown. I will give him that one. I don't think that it gives it any identity. I still don't think it's any better in ability. It's just numbers. It's just better numbers. Yeah, the charges, that was a bug. Let's see here. Oh, yeah. This one is kind of a snarky little answer, but I'm gonna put it up because it's kind of funny. Most people don't like to be soulstones and pike the whole quest. That's what an immobile character is, and that's what this tree promotes. I mean, effectively, yeah, it's a super snarky response, but it's technically true. It's like, you've created this game in a way that requires people to play a certain playstyle, and then you introduce this tree that requires them to play in not only a different playstyle, but a playstyle that is not conducive to the current meta. And then you say you don't have to use it. That's bad. That is very bad. Because if you tell people they don't have to use this tree that is completely not useful to them, you know what they'll do? They won't use it. It's a waste of development time at that point. Core 6 loses 10 RP and 10 double shot. That was a big thing, and a lot of people have mentioned this. See, here's the thing. Horizon, which is not Horizon Shot, trust me, I can figure that one out, I'm sure, which is definitely not Horizon Shot. Yeah, it's totally its own thing with its own identity, and it isn't actually a Ranger Deepwood Stalker Core 6 for 41 points in the tree. Definitely not. Plus 2 to all ability scores, pretty universal. 10 range power, super universal. 10 double shot, pretty universal. 2 many shot maximum charges, somewhat useful, but many shot is still kind of, many shot is pretty universal, so that's all universal stuff. Now it's 2 to ability scores, universal. 2 max many shot, pretty universal. And favorite enemies, which requires you to have better favorite enemies. Doesn't require it, but let's be honest, it leads you into it. Like, honestly, How does this not lead you into playing a ranger of some kind to get more favorite enemies? You're basically using a ranger mechanic and saying, hey, this ranger mechanic would be better if you were a ranger. That's the carrot, but it's a very, very it's a poisonous, it's toxic carrot. That is a carrot with a worm in the center. It is a carrot that is hiding a worm. And it is bad worm, bad carrot. That's not a good way to do it. See, here it is. Universal carrot with a worm in it. That one suggests that you would have a funner time with this tree if you played a ranger. If you played the ranger it's based on, the ranger that it is a quote-unquote universal version of. No, I'm not going to argue the numbers on it. I'm not a mathematician. I'm not going to play that game. And honestly, the numbers probably check out to some extent, at least to some extent. But I don't think it's good. I think it's very, very terrible. I think it's a silly idea to make a universal tree hint at the reliance upon a class. Like, Vistani Knife Fighter does kind of hint that a rogue would be slightly better because you can't get much damage out of, a D4 weapon. But here's the big caveat. Favored souls can use them very effectively. That's the thing. You don't need to be a rogue. It doesn't even necessarily say you have to be a rogue. If you use a core class mechanic... Oh, by the way, Vistani Knife Fighter has favorite enemy in it, so it also kind of misleads you and misdirects you from the current meta ranger style, which is Longsword Tempest. So there is the idea of favorite enemies there, but there's favorite enemies everywhere. This tree has favorite enemies, but it's because of all the other things that are ranger related that tie you to this tree, that make you see, it suggests to you, hey, it would be a better tree if you went 6 levels of ranger, or 12, or 14, or 20 levels of ranger. It suggests to you that it would be a better tree if you were ranger. That's a core. That's the thing. Like, the favorite enemies in other trees, the favorite enemies in those trees, are usually tier 1s, and they're just tacked on there, and they fit the style of the tree. Vistani Knife Fighter is an undead hunter. So they would have what? They would have what for their favorite enemy? They would have a favorite enemy undead. They would not have, like, a favorite enemy marked target. You always consider marked targets to be favorite enemies and deal extra damage against them, which kind of requires that you have other favorite enemies to get more damage against them, right? Isn't that right? No, of course it's not. No, this is a bad mechanic. It's not necessarily a downgrade in terms of DPS. It's a downgrade in terms of flavor. It has no flavor. It's a terrible, terrible tree for flavor. Yeah, and favorite enemies are also pretty useless. That is also true. They're not, like, amazingly useless, but they're pretty stupid. They're not worth much. It's basically like, I could be a pally and have every enemy take amounts of damage that are ridiculous, or I could be a ranger and have those 4 guys over there take a bit more damage. It's not as good a mechanic. Core 6 got downgraded big. Did it? I'd encourage people to give this a shot at Lamania and let it know what it feels. Marking is a lot faster compared to last time for a 20 ranger. For a 20 ranger. Why do you need to be a ranger to use this tree that is a universal tree, not necessarily reliant on ranger? This one actually is a big thing in the comments. I'm going to go through probably 2 more comments at this point because I think this video is kind of getting a little longer. I'm going to go through 2 more comments and then I'm just going to go ahead and call her there. But this is a huge point of contention. You don't want to be a 20 ranger to take this tree. Guess what you can take if you're a 20 ranger? Deepwood Stalker. You could take a fun tree. Deepwood Stalker has a lot of things you can do. It doesn't have a lot of time to waste on 41 points for a favorite enemy mark target, where marking is the only mechanic in this tree that seems to have been given any thought. It's not a good mechanic, and it shouldn't preclude the necessity of a 20 ranger. You shouldn't have to be a full-on ranger to get a bonus to weapon damage. And if you're a ranger, if you're a 20 ranger, you're taking a lot of ranger stuff, right? How much more stuff do you have to get favorite enemies with? I know that you think that, like, giving the universal points out like candy is a good idea. It's not a good idea, but how much more do you think you can get out of this? And how many more favorite enemies do you want to add into the game before you realize that Paladin probably has every creature in the game by that point? They don't need to worry anymore, and Paladin does more damage, and then you've basically ousted the Ranger once again, making it relegated to the lower tiers once again, or still. This tree could have been an interesting one. It could have been really interesting. It turned into complete and total pap. It's a nothing burger of a tree. And of course, this thing right here, this is clarifying the enhancement, but if your marked target is also a favorite enemy, you apply favorite enemy bonuses twice to that creature. Technically, if you have favorite enemy marked target, wouldn't you just have them as a favorite enemy and you apply all your favorite enemy bonuses to them? Not double? It doesn't make any sense. Why? In my opinion, it would be better if the bonuses applied only 12 seconds with the power bonus cooldown, but the cooldown of the ability itself remains 3 seconds. I don't know if it's true that it stayed 3 seconds or 12, but I know that the text there about, let's go all the way back up there. The text of this implies 12 seconds. So, and of course, 12 seconds, 12-second cooldown. It's very consistently 12 seconds. So if it is 3 seconds, they did not include it. Let's see here. I think that one, that one's the one we did there. But I think the best one is actually right here, because this is a good deconstruction. Single target tree, no point in running IPS at all, improve precise shot. Nothing in this tree really complements it. Single target DPS felt good, though slow. It's not very good if it's very slow, to be fair, because slow gameplay is what I got with the Great Crossbow, and that's not fun. Gameplay was basically all hot buttons: mark, opening, sniper, many shot, corner. The first universal cooldown, or the 1 second, sorry, first. The 1 second universal cooldown on mark needs to be removed, making it totally free action, because that's 1 second out of every 4 to 6 years spent not doing actual attacks. This is where I got this point from, and that makes a lot of sense. If it feels like Assassin's, Assassin's Mark or whatever it was, the Rogue Core 3 for the Assassin tree, which is a tree people don't use very often, not in the top tiers anyway. I've raided a lot, and I see me. I am the dude who rogues. But I don't see other assassins, and there's a good reason for it. It's because assassin gets one shot by everything. No matter how much defense you have, I have well over 130 fizzy resist. I have the capstone of 100 magi. Like, if I get hit by a spell, I'm dead instantly. I have a cap of 100 that my light armor allows me. I can't take a spell, because if I can't save against it, I'm dead. That's just guaranteed. But if it works that same way, then it's a terrible ability. I would never use it myself because it wastes so much time. Overly dependent on 2 things. Archer's focus stacks and opening shot bonus damage. Yep. Opening shot should feel like an opening shot. It should be really a big deal. It shouldn't one-shot, to be fair. But then again, so much else shouldn't be one-shotting. So in this game, probably that's not the same. But yeah, 100% on that means you can't use scatter shot, because then that's 2 targets at above 100 or at under 100%, which ruins the opening shot. Makes sense. The presumption is that you would use Archer's focus stacking all the way up, get your opening shot in, and then start using your scatter shot. But it's like, at that point, if you're opening shot, you might as well just jump back a couple of seconds and open shot again and insta-kill, right? Running an IPS without those 25 stacks of, I think that's Archer's focus, not IF. Nothing did enough damage at all. It was all chicken scratch. When opening does one shot, then you're stuck waiting for mark to come off cooldown because you have to use mark open on the first next target. You're hard limited to 1 kill every 4 seconds. So very, very single targety in a game that necessitates the use of area effect to actually feel like you're even doing anything anymore. He mentions that the Enlightened Spirit locks and Pale Masters are going to be a little more obnoxious to play through, because it doesn't actually work off of, say, 90% HP where you can actually use your open shot. Your open shot requires a hard 100%. So he's mentioning here that these 2 classes will basically nullify your biggest attack, which is probably something to work on, honestly. Range on mark feels too low. I practically have to be in mob aggro range, which keeps me from being able to tactically select my target first. That's something I didn't know about, but that's definitely something they'll probably need to look at. After Sharn welcome Heroic Elite, Single target DPS is satisfying, but still the area effect is lacking. And then on Heroic Reaper 1, the hireling heals actually became his biggest necessity. Because apparently he has no additional way to fight or kite, and you have to stand still all the time. I think that's actually a big thing. And I know we're sort of petering out towards the end here, but I know that's a big thing right there. You kind of need to be able to solo some content. Let's be real. If you have a comparison between a melee dude who can rampage through Heroic Reaper 1, and I know they can because I can do it myself. Super easy, and I'm not good at the game. I could do it myself. You can rip right through Reaper 1 on basically any heroic content with a melee. So why is the range tune having like this ridiculously 180 experience on that particular regard? I know you should be partying, but then again, everybody was upset about the numbers squish because then they wouldn't be able to use Sword of Shadows and literally carry themselves to 30. So don't come at me at that. You've already complained about that. If one class is so much worse at this thing in every regard, and the other class is using, broken mechanics like strike through and broken weapons like Sword of Shadows or the Avengers Blades or something like that. If they're using broken mechanics that their class supports that yours cannot, and those items are not going to be fixed and those mechanics are not going to be looked at, what's the reason that you would actually play this class or this spec if it's not good enough? It's not fun. It's not good enough. It's super dirtles. It's very obviously dirtles. Like, a rotation should not feel like you have to do things in sequence. A rotation should feel like this is the ideal damage output, but you can swap things up situationally when the situation calls for it. Maybe instead of a daze effect, maybe instead of like just doing my full damage rotation, it's time to put a daze effect on this big crown mob over here because he will kick our ass. He will destroy our party if we leave him alive. So we'll daze him, say the Vengeance Reaper, you want to stun him or CC him or hold person on him, hold monster on him, and then kill everything else around him because he will destroy your party if he dies first or dies at some point with something around him and buffs them and they'll just run through the whole group. Like, there are certain playstyles that require a rotation, but not like a set in stone every single time rotation. That cannot be fun. The rotation has to be a little more fluid. You have to be able to assess the situation and do something according to that situation. That's something Dito's good at. It's like, certain damage types are good in these situations. Certain mechanics are not useful. Like CC is not really useful on machines because they don't get held. They don't really care too much about that. I don't know if they get hold monster, but they can't get hold person. You can't like charm them or anything like that. They're immune to like certain negative damage or whatever. It's like there's certain mechanics in this game that just work more effectively on some mobs than others. But for a playstyle that is literally just use first ability, use second ability, use third ability, repeat, and you can't take a hit, and you can't deal enough damage, and you cannot deal area effect damage, it's like, that's a very limited spec right there. You can't insta-kill, you can't do any of the mechanics that would allow you to be able to do content that other classes can do. Very limited. And the mobs swarm around you in a circle. I like that mechanic if you are in a group as a ranger, because if you're solo as a ranger, it's the most obnoxious thing in the world, but it makes sense. Mobs would not just stand there in a line waiting for you to hit them. They would start to surround you, because guess what? They get a flanking bonus. They get to crunch you a lot easier if all of them are hitting you than if one of them is hitting you. So I can't really argue with that. But the fact that you can't actually answer that you have no AoE option to stand against that, and let's not get into like DC casting, because DC casting is not new player friendly. This tree is not new player friendly, and you need crazy DCs to be able to stun things while still being able to do dex to damage, because spells do not work off of dex. So you would actually need to put dex in there to use this tree, then another stat, still having some for con, and also try to jank about your other stats like trying to eat UMD up. It requires just a ridiculous amount of building in order to do it, and to do it well. And it's not going to add to the fun. of the entire spec. It's going to be terrible. It's like, then you're not playing that, you're playing this other tree, and you just happen to have this rotation you have to engage in order to actually do something with this silly tree. So the standard playstyle is apparently good in single target, and hideously bad in area effect. So yeah, it's pretty much what we expected. I have already mentioned my points on this tree. I hate it. I hate it a lot. I hate every part of it. It's the worst tree I've seen so far, and that includes things like the Pally revamp, which just basically stripped the paladin of every tiny amount of flavor and gave it this like ridiculous dependence on favored weapons, but didn't actually go into what a favored weapon represents to a Pally. It just kind of leaves that up to your imagination. It's a terrible tree. This is my second investigation of it. If something significant does not happen to it, I'm simply going to write it off here, and this is still an F- tree. It's still a failure as a tree. In terms of flavor, in terms of thematic component and mechanical component, it's probably powerful enough that it's going to push itself up in ranking in that regard. But, like, would I ever play this? Absolutely not. Never, 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 never. I'm not taking any of the tiers. I'm not taking any of the cores. I'm not touching this because it's silly. It's a silly tree, and I don't like it. It's a terrible, 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 silly tree, and has no flavor whatsoever, minus this ability right here. And that is not worth the tree. I'm not taking it. I don't recommend it. I think this is a terrible design. I think that this needs to be revisited all the way from the ground up, and it needs to be revisited with a proper focus. What is the Horizon Walker? Not what does it do? What is it? That's how you start. And then you go into what it does with the things that it is. Anyway, that's all I think I've got for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you take care. I hope you have a great one. I hope that you find something in this tree, anywhere in this tree, anywhere at all. I hope you find something that actually appeals to you, because I legitimately found nothing worth taking the tree for, at the very least. I would never bother with this. It's a hideous tree. I hate it to its core. To its cores, of course. But anyway, I think that's all the time we have for this one. I will get up out of here, and I hope you take care. You guys have a great one. Bye-bye for now.